Today, I will walk you through step by step on how to invest as a beginner. And by the end of this video, you will have invested your first $300. Did you know that sometimes dead people are the best investors? And there is a way to get the same result without being dead. More on that later. Also, this might be one of the scariest things that you have ever done in your life. And being scared is totally okay. It's totally okay to feel the fear and do it anyways. And with that, let's start off with the first step, knowing your investment horizon. First step is knowing what your savings goals are and how long you're saving for. Usually there are two categories. One is short-term and the other one is long-term. So for the first one, short-term, usually 1 to 3 years of your goal horizons is usually considered short-term. So for example, if you're saving for a trip going to Japan, congratulations, a savings account or a GIC would be a great idea. Comment down below what your country calls a GIC. And in the Americas, they call it CDs. I don't know, maybe other countries call it different things. Anyway, going back to long-term investment. So anything longer than 3 years horizon will be considered long-term. And that's where investing in the stock market comes into play. And this is because the stock market can be very, very volatile. And you could lose up to 10% or 20% of your savings in one day if you put everything in your stock market portfolio. So that will really suck because that will mean one less Japan day for you. Sag. So the second step will be figuring out what exactly you should be investing in. And in general, for regular investors, a broad-based, low-cost index fund would be really good. So an index fund that tracks general market performances over time. And I just want to say I made a mistake in my first investing video saying that the VTSAX and the VTI are good S&P 500 index tracking index funds. They don't. They track the total American stock market. They're still really good index funds to get, and J.L. Collins and also Purple and also Mr. Money Mustache gets these index funds because the total US market goes up over time as well. And if you're looking for S&P 500 specific index funds, these are some of the ones you can look at. So going back to investing our first $300, the 3 companies that you can look at are Vanguard, Fidelity, and Charles Schwab. And J.L. Collins recommends VTSAX by Vanguard because of its very low expense ratio of 0.04%. But it might not work for us in our case because the minimum amount required for that fund is $3,000. So in our case, we can choose VTI, basically a ETF version of VTSAX with the expense ratio of 0.03%. And the Fidelity and Charles Schwab versions of those would be these ones. Okay, some of you guys sitting at home now might be like, wait, Ash, I don't use the American dollars or I don't live in the States. Should I still be investing in VTI? Well, to answer that question, usually that case, a more diverse portfolio would be recommended. So the author of the book, Beat the Bank, Larry Bates, recommends these following portfolio allocations for non-US citizens. And as you can see, there is the Canadian stock portion because he's writing for a Canadian audience, and there is a US stock or global stock portion as well. For the non-Canadians watching, simply switch out the Canadian index fund with their own country's index fund that either track the total market performance or the equivalent of the S&P 500 performance. Now you might be asking, oh my god, I don't know which portfolio mix to choose. And that is a very, very valid question. But you know what? Let's hold on to that thought for now because this might get a little bit too complicated for our first video. So right now, let's just focus on this first baby step, breaking that fear barrier in entering the stock market and getting our first index fund. So let's just focus on buying our first index fund and not get too overwhelmed. Great. So now you have picked an index fund. Now let's move on to step 3, which is buying your first VTSAX. If you live in Canada, Wealthsimple and Questrade are really good platforms. And for me, personally, I use Questrade because they have these 0 commission fees for trading stocks that are based in Canada or in the US. And they also have really, really good and patient customer service. And also, Questrade has a link to a service called Passive, and it's free to use Passive if you are a Questrade account holder. And I really like Passive because they can allow you to build these kind of like portfolios within your investment funds. So you just have to do a one-click purchase for all your investments. All right, okay, so let's go buy our first VTI from Questrade. First of all, we gotta log in. So then after we log in, the main page will show us there are 3 accounts to choose from to buy our stock in. So out of the 3 accounts, the marginal account doesn't offer any tax benefits. And don't panic if your other account's name doesn't look the same as mine, because in different countries they probably call it different names. But the other 2 accounts are actually tax beneficial for you. So what it means is that you can actually keep more of the gains in your own pockets instead of the pockets of the government. And there's a whole entire debate on which tax advantage account to start, and it can get very complicated depending on which country you're in. Looking at you, America. And since this is our very first investment, let's just keep things very, very simple and just choose a tax advantage account. So in our case, let's start off with the TFSA, which stands for Tax-Free Savings Account. So what this means is that I am using after-tax dollars to invest in a TFSA, and all the gains I'm getting from my investments when I sell, I will not be taxed again. So I get more money, hell yeah. So let's open up the account and look for VTI. And then let's move on to the column that says purchase. And then you'll see that in the purchasing section, it will ask you, okay, what kind of purchase are you willing to make? Is it a market order, a limit order, etc., etc.? It actually gets quite complicated, and I had to Google what they all mean as well. And I am still kind of confused, but it's okay. Let's just choose the easiest, safest, and least complicated option, market order. And we're done. We bought our first index fund. Ah, hell yeah! Oh my god! Congrats! Oh my god, time for celebration. Oh my goodness. Do a little dance, flex to your friends, or cry tears of joy, whatever your choice. But I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you for taking this first step. And if you did, comment down below so we can all congratulate you and give you all the virtual hugs you deserve, my kings and queens and royalties. And don't forget to subscribe, because I just want to keep making more and more videos to help all of you guys buy back your freedom. Yippee! Okay, so we have made our first step. Hell yeah! What is next then? Well, simply speaking, the next step would be to repeat the same process every single time you get your next paycheck. And you wake up 10, 15, 40 years later, open your account and see that you've become a millionaire. Yes, the proven method of buying and holding is just that effective, because the stock market always moves up over the years and the value always goes up, and so will the value of your own money. And this is the reason why dead people sometimes are the best investors, because there's no freaking way to fiddle with their investments. Also, if Warren Buffett is putting 90% of his money in his will into index funds, perhaps that's telling us something. When I mentioned that you can invest, then wake up in 10 to 15 years and become a millionaire, you might have had your
discourse sus
goggles on. Well, here is a real-life example of someone who did just that. Check that video out to see how Purple was able to retire at 30 years old, and it might teach you how you can do it too. And I'll see you over there. Slay. Okay. Okay, bye.